Now we're just going to continue our Cold War notes, but I do always kind of have to put this in context. I told you guys when we first started this, the Cold War is a competition between the United States and the Soviet Union on all sorts of different planes. We compete economically, we compete politically, we compete in the Olympics. But there is a competition when it comes to military strength as well. Now we were talking about how if the United States and the Soviet Union directly go to war against each other, it's the end of the world. It's World War III. So we're going to see throughout the Cold War a handful of proxy wars, where it's not us against the Soviets directly, it's our allies going to war, and we simply back them up. We saw this take place in Korea. We're going to see it happen again in Vietnam. So what we're going to start today is going to be the Vietnam War. Now I want you to be certain that you get the years as well, because this war drags on.
For 30 years.
Not quite 30.
20.
Not quite 20. We're getting closer. This is the longest war the United States has ever been in, except the war that we're still currently in. We've been fighting in Afghanistan for almost 20 years. That is now the longest war we've participated in. But before that, Vietnam's the longest war we've been a part of. Now, I need to do it like this, because Vietnam has not just been at war with us for years, it's been at war for longer than that. They were involved in a war before we even had any interest there at all. So I need to do this in a couple of phases. The first part of this is going to be Vietnam and their colonial war. Now, Vietnam is located in Southeast Asia. It's what at that time it's called Indochina. Now, Indochina was a European colony for years. In fact, there were multiple European powers that had interest there. Starting back in the late 1800s, France had controlled Indochina. It was their colonial holding. Now, they hold Indochina for years and years. Now, you sort of have to remember, going back to when we had talked about taking colonies, the French take Indochina, and there's some very valuable natural resources there. One of which comes from a tree.
Rubber.
The rubber trees. It's a valuable natural resource to have, but there are plenty other things that these colonies are going to provide for the French when they have their empire. Now, we have talked about Indochina and how valuable that rubber is before. Because as time progresses, namely in the 1930s and the 1940s, who else wants that natural resource?
The United States.
Japan. Japan wants that natural resource. So the Japanese are going to move into Indochina during World War II. Now I want to point something out here because this is going to have to come back full circle. Does France really care what's going on the other side of the world in one of their tiny little colonies by 1940? No, they got much bigger issues. What's their bigger problem?
Germany.
Yeah, they're going to be occupied. They're invaded. They don't really care what's going on the other side of the world. Now, I want to just kind of play this out. Is the weakening of French control good news for Vietnam and Indochina?
Yes, sure. Open for grabs.
But now they've got a new problem. The Japanese are going to move in. The Japanese are going to control Indochina, starting as the French are weakening. Now, when the Japanese come into Indochina, remember, Tojo said, I'm not a colonizer, I'm a liberator. I'm here to bring you into the greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere. We are going to kick these Europeans out, and we will create one new massive empire. I promise. Did Tojo actually mean that? No, he just wants to rob them of their natural resources. So here comes Tojo. He just really replaces the French. By 1941, there's a Vietnamese man named Ho Chi Minh who is sick of everyone else taking them as a colony. Now, there's a weird little walk through history with Ho Chi Minh, because Ho Chi Minh is going to go to the negotiations that made the Treaty of Versailles. He goes to Paris and he meets President Woodrow Wilson. Now, when he was doing this, he was in his early 20s when he did this. He meets Woodrow Wilson. He says, "Oh my gosh, you're a hero to me. You're the guy that's saying that you're going to get rid of all these European colonies. I'm from a European colony. You're the one talking about self-determination. You're my hero. You're my savior." And Woodrow Wilson says, "Thank you. Who are you?" And he says, "Well, I'm Ho Chi Minh." And Woodrow Wilson kind of says, "Great, it's nice to meet you. I don't know who you are," and walks away. Now, there's no way Woodrow Wilson could have ever known who this guy would be. It's impossible. So I'm not saying that Woodrow Wilson's at fault for this, but Ho Chi Minh takes this very personally. He leaves Paris and he goes to Moscow. When he's in Moscow, he learns how to be a communist.
Oh,
Dang
this
it.
again?
He leaves Moscow, he goes back to Vietnam, and by 41, he creates a Vietnamese nationalist group called the Viet Minh. Now, the Viet Minh wants Vietnam independence. But Ho Chi Minh doesn't really make any bones about it. He says, once we're independent, we're going to be communist. He declares their independence in 1945. Now, I want to ask, what else happens in 1945?
The end of World War II.
World War II ends. So the timing is actually very clever. By 1945, the Japanese are being pushed back. It's all but just a matter of time before the war comes to an end. So now the Japanese are out. Ho Chi Minh says Vietnam will be independent. The timing's right, but we got a big problem. In 45, we know that the Soviets will be an issue. We know that the world is going to split apart. You're either with us or you're against us. Now let's kind of play this out a little bit. If we have Vietnam declaring independence and Ho Chi Minh, the leader of this movement, is a communist,
Not good.
can we allow that to happen?
No.
We need some negotiations here. What we're going to eventually rely upon is we need a deal. If only there was some way that we could keep Ho Chi Minh from declaring independence and make Vietnam a colony again.
War.
Who do you think is going to show up again and say, Vietnam is our colony?
France.
The French. Here we have the French stepping back in and saying, we never lost them as a colony. We just were temporarily suspended. The French are going to come back into Vietnam and declare that they are their colony once again. You think Ho Chi Minh's going to have this?
No.
It's time for a war. Now, we've seen the French fight before.
Surrender!
They're very good at that. But when the French come back to Vietnam, they're in this kind of weird little position because the French, even the French, are considerably more powerful than tiny little Vietnam. They're their own little colony. So should the French win this war easily?
No.
Yeah, they should, except for the French. They should. They're an industrial power. The Vietnamese aren't an industrial power. It should have been a rout. Leave it to the French to mess this up. The French are going to be stuck fighting in Vietnam for almost a decade. But the French are capitalistic democracies, and they're fighting against a communist. Do we have to back them up?
Gotta help.
Have to. If we really believe in this idea of containment, we better back the French. So we're going to give them money, we're going to give them weapons, and we tell them, this is your fight. You're going to be the ones that put boots on the ground. As soon as anyone says, let the French do the fighting, you know it's going to be bad.
Yeah, it's gonna be very
It's
bad.
going to fail. Now, here's just kind of the problem with what the French do, and we should have learned some lessons, but we underestimated. The French are fighting in Vietnam, and they don't know what they're doing. Because Vietnam, most of the country is this dense, thick jungle. Fighting in a jungle is very, very different from fighting on the plains. The Vietnamese understand something, and they know this well because they've been doing this for eons. If they're up against a superior opponent, don't fight a conventional war. Don't fight their war, because you won't win. Fight your war. Fight as guerrillas. Now, please understand, I don't mean guerrilla like gorilla. I mean like guerrilla. It's a Spanish phrase. What this is simply, we will wait. We will bide our time. We'll be patient. We'll just inflict damage when we have superiority. And when we don't, we simply hide in the jungle. We blend back into society. Refuse to engage a superior opponent. Just inflict casualties and then run away. Wait for your opportunity. For roughly 9 years, that opportunity is yet to present itself. The Vietnamese are content just inflicting damage, just dragging the war out. At Dien Bien Phu, they finally have their opportunity. Now, I will tell you this, and I bet you understand some problems here. The French army has massed outside of this a small town called Dien Bien Phu. The French army thinks it's very wise to mass in a valley.
What the flip?
Now, I'll go ahead and ask you guys. Anyone else see problems?
Stupid French.
Leave it to the French. Here's Ho Chi Minh looking at the French army massed in a valley, and even he says, there's no way they're dumb enough to do this. This has to be a trap.
They're French.
I should have. Yes, I should
I
have.
feel like them being French is a trap.
This is what's kind of weird is, at Dien Bien Phu, Ho Chi Minh doesn't even believe it. He just goes, no, don't fall for it. There's no way they're this stupid. After about 2 days of waiting, he kind of says, I guess they are this stupid. They set this up in such a way where they will just bide their time until this moment. This is their opportunity. They're going to ring this valley with artillery and just smash the French. It's an absolute rout. Now we have a situation where the French are done in Vietnam. They want to sue for peace. We need a peace treaty. The Geneva Accords is going to end the French involvement. But now we got to talk here. This is 1954. We just got out of the Korean War a year before this. And now you have the French falling and a communist poised to take over Vietnam. Can we have this take place?
No, we gotta get some boots on the ground.
We're going to get involved. And we say, we're not going to let this happen. So we need a vote. We are going to have an election. When the French leave Vietnam, we are going to broker a deal. And we say Vietnam will be split for now. Eventually it will be reunited. But for now, it's going to be split. We are going to create a new nation called North Vietnam. North Vietnam will be backed by the Soviets.
Oh, where have we seen this?
South Vietnam is backed by us. It is very similar to what happened in Korea. Now, we're going to have some kind of local elections. North Vietnam's going to choose a president. They're going to overwhelmingly vote for Ho Chi Minh. South Vietnam's going to have a vote as well. They're going to choose someone, sort of, that is going to have two characteristics. Someone who is democratic and capitalist, and loyal to us.